I wondered, who is the most powerful killer in Dead by Daylight? Hey, if this becomes a yearly thing, I'll throw in the legendary skins alongside Freddy Fazbear next time. Oh my god. So for the last 2 years, I've been ranking DBD killers by their canon power. This list has 19 new entries, making it by far my longest video. But because it's so long, I made sure to put timestamps including a tier list at the very end of the video for those of you who just want to see where I ranked everyone. After doing this for a while, I have a bit of hindsight to work with here, which I'll explain to you. Skip to here if you don't care about any of that and just want to get into the ranking. Just know I'm sending you a timestamp if you comment something I've already explained. Also know that because there's so many characters from so many different things, I won't be super knowledgeable on every character. They all range from I've seen almost everything this character's in, to I only know of them because of DBD. I did do the research, but I'm just one guy. First off, I'll be ranking these characters by their canon power, not gameplay whatsoever. I'll only look into gameplay to get a better understanding of their powers. On that same note, I'll be ranking everyone off of Dead by Daylight's canon. DBD does have a story and it does have a canon. Even if it isn't canon to FNAF, Halloween, or Evil Dead, they are canon to DBD. So if their powers are tweaked for the purpose of the trials, I'll take that into account over what they may have shown from the respective universe. And because DBD is a multiplayer video game and not a comic book or TV show, we don't know exactly how every power works or the extent of each killer's power. I'll try to come to reasonable conclusions, especially for the original killers, but I won't be delving too deep into theory territory or straight up headcanon. If it wasn't explicitly stated in the lore or shown in a cinematic or at least in some flavor text, then I won't take it into account here, no matter how right you think your favorite YouTubers are. My rankings aren't always exactly who be to, but I do keep it in mind, so I'll give a quick explanation as to how or why an entry is above the previous one. Also, I put a poll on my community tab asking you guys what I should do for each killer's intro, and you chose my best attempt at recreating their stun sounds. Just know I can't do voices to literally save my life, so bear with me. Unfortunately, the bottom spot hasn't changed between last year's ranking and this one. There are big strong guys, superpowered creatures, and literal godlike beings on this list, so Amanda Young's 5'3" self isn't gonna cut it. She has nothing as for physical showings, just a bunch of anti-feats if anything. She and the other non-cancer ridden saw killers sneak attack most of their victims, which the entity may have turned into a real burst of speed, at the cost of making her pig mask an actual decapitated pig's head. She is given her reverse bear traps to place on survivors' heads, which could possibly work on some of the killers directly above her, but if it came down to a fight, she would most certainly lose against anyone here. The solo Legion members barely make it above Amanda. Susie, Joey, Julie, and Frank were 4 bad apples in Ormond who went around doing bad stuff until one day Frank and Julie killed the janitor and the entity swirled them away. Originally, all 4 of them had a hand in killing the janitor, like some murder pact, but that seems to have been retconned. In the realm, they weren't given much as for powers. They go into a feral frenzy where their speed increases at the cost of having this sort of tunnel vision. It's possible that the feral frenzy isn't actually on a timer and doesn't go away after hitting the same person twice, and that's only for gameplay purposes, but it's safe to assume that aside from running a bit faster, the Legion isn't any stronger or more durable. We see Julie get quickly overpowered by the janitor they later killed, but had Frank not been there, she probably would have gone to jail instead of mega hell. The Legion and Pig are all humans, but I feel like their feral frenzy gives them a bit of an edge. I feel so silly. The clown is a big jiggly boy, once athletic as a kid but not particularly powerful now. It's stated that he prefers his victims to be unaware of his presence, likely implying that he can't just take on anyone in a straight up fight, even struggling to kill a guy he had already captured in his caravan. He was lazy and sloppy and was going to get caught before being taken by the entity. In the trials, he has his afterpiece tonic and antidote. He throws his tonic, which breaks and releases a large purple cloud that slows and distorts the vision of anyone who inhales it except for the clown himself, who is now immune to the effects. The antidote removes the effect and replaces it with a burst of speed. This obviously wouldn't come into play in a fighting scenario because it would only help the opposing side. The clown is bigger and stronger than the Legion, and I feel like his tonic would deny the Legion of their feral frenzy and give him the win. Tiffany and Chucky should both be relative in power. Chucky is just slightly above because he has more feats. They both have their respective strength from when they're a human, making them deceptively strong even as dolls. Chucky himself is able to transfer his consciousness into other beings, usually other good guy dolls, but even other humans. This is a long process and isn't something he can just whip out and do. I also had some people scaling Chucky to the storm that his incantation creates, which doesn't make sense at all because it's never used offensively. And I also won't count the army of Chucky dolls here because we only see one at a time in a trial. At the end of the day though, they're just small little dudes. Not bulletproof and not superhuman in strength. But I do think Tiffany's and Chucky's surprising strength and speed would allow them to get the jump on the clown and overpower him. Miss Fuchi is a legendary skin for the artist and the first legendary here, but I won't be giving her or any of the other legendary skins, for that matter, the abilities of the original character their skin is tied to. That would take away from the purpose of the video because that just makes the skins as strong and nothing changes. Miss Fuchi is a large woman, maybe. I'll take her as we see in-game, which is around artist height, so 7 to 8 feet tall, which is consistent in some of her appearances. Sorry, no 50-foot tall lake monster. She's capable of tearing people apart with her shark-like teeth, but assumptions do have to be made here, because as far as I've seen, she hasn't fought anyone or anything on her level of power, so I'm guessing she could and would lose a fight against anyone strong enough. But she'd probably just swallow Chucky and Tiffany, so I could be underestimating her, but she just has no feats against anyone worth mentioning. Tomie is a legendary skin for the spirit. From my understanding, Tomie doesn't have any physical buffs on her own, no super strength or speed or teleportation or durability or whatever. What she does have is pretty insane regeneration and a form of immortality. She can come back from just about any kind of damage and pieces of her can create other versions of her. But unless there's some kind of radiation, her regeneration takes time like hours or even days, so she can still lose via incapacitation for the purpose of this video. And there's the fact that everyone in DBD is essentially immortal via the entity, which evens out the playing field. She does have some sort of mental manipulation though, making people, usually men, obsess over her and do exactly what she wants. But some of these instances border on complete mind control. The thing is, this ability works best on people who are already interested or attracted to her, and normal people have straight up resisted it before. And similar to Chucky, I won't be taking 40 plus Tomies into account since that isn't how we see her load up in the trial. She's solo dolo with 2 faces on her head, probably stressed out from being sucked into the land of eternal suffering. I think Miss Fuchi would absolutely destroy her in a fight, but could also be susceptible to her mind attacks due to her obsession with being a model, which we've seen Tomie take advantage of before. The twins' main advantage is that they can operate independently from each other, allowing them to possibly overwhelm a few killers on this list. Charlotte isn't supernaturally strong, but she is a big girl and overpowered another large man who was on top of her. She was able to survive on the run, stealing, fighting, and killing those who tried to capture her. Victor was dead for years, but the entity brought him back or remade him as some sort of manipulation to turn Charlotte into a killer. Victor is tiny and fragile, dying to a single kick or being thrown on the floor. But he is really fast and pounces long distances, capable of tearing into people with his bare hands. A plus for the twins is that Victor can't stay dead, immediately spawning inside of Charlotte a few seconds after dying. I doubt Tomie's mind manipulation would break through the twins' bond, allowing them to quote-unquote kill her. The trickster, despite not being as impressive physically like some of the others below him, does have a pretty huge advantage by using his throwing knives, allowing him to keep a fight at a range. On top of singing and dancing, this K-pop star gone crazy is extremely accurate and deadly with his knives. That and his bladed baseball bat gives him a slight reach advantage on all the killers so far who only use their hands or shorter weapons. I feel like a single knife would take Victor down, and as long as he keeps the fight at a range, the trickster could take Charlotte out with his knives, although she would obviously win in a close quarters confrontation. Honestly, with the amount of changes the Skull Merchant has gone through, I couldn't even really tell you what her in-game power is. Chess Merchant did irreparable damage to my opinion on the character as a whole. Well, for the most part. Adriana has drones which she uses to watch her prey from afar, as you do with drones. The drones leave claw traps on those it spots which damages them, and allows her to track their location via the Google Pixel she keeps in her pocket. The Skull Merchant is a skilled and experienced fighter and is extremely tactical. She kidnapped and hunted people in a remote area, although most were just average Joes. She did lock in and kill more experienced fighters as well. I think Adriana is a much better fighter with much better gear when comparing her to the trickster. Her stealth and drones would allow her to get in close and wipe the floor with him before his knives are too much of a factor. Houndmaster is new to this list, but she's really strong despite being pretty human, soloing dozens of armies of pirates at a time, although I assume they had no guns because, obviously, but it still makes her one of the more skilled hand-to-hand combatants here. She also has her best pal Snug with her, a big-ass dog who can track, sniff out, and attack survivors. She does presumably have dozens of other dogs somewhere with her in the realm, but again, we only see one dog at a time, so I'll only account for Snug as opposed to an army of canines. The Skull Merchant has better gear and may technically be a better fighter, but the Houndmaster can just stomp heads in, so clearly she's stronger. Snug can certainly track Adriana just as well as her drones can track the Houndmaster, with the added benefit of actually being able to attack. Originally, I wasn't gonna include William, but why not? I know this is the Blumhouse movie version of the character, but I figured I'd skill him with some of the game feats too. William usually went after children, which is admittedly unimpressive, but he has easily overpowered and killed adults as well. While having a suit on, his physicals are increased, which is consistent in the movie when Shaggy shoves Peeta Millark across the room. William is a genius, but prep time isn't something I'll be considering too much for this video. He should loosely scale to other animatronics, both because he's wearing a spring bunny suit and he's taken out other animatronics, although they were sneak attacks. This skin is post spring lock, so I don't think that'll be an issue here. Houndmaster outskills him, but the spring bodysuit just blatantly overpowers her and her dog. Ugh. So here's where this rule comes into play, because I'm taking the version of the character that we see in Dead by Daylight. This is Reboot Freddy with one single movie played by Jackie Earle Haley, and not Robert Englund's version of the character who has multiple movies and crossovers with other horror icons. And on top of that, his lore confirms that his power was tinkered with by the entity, weakened in some parts and strengthened in others. While in the realm, the survivors he's up against will eventually fall asleep, although they can still move and function as though they were awake. And it's fair to assume that something similar would happen to most killers he'd be up against. While they're asleep, Freddy can use dream pellets to hurt them, or send snares to slow them down. All in all, he isn't given much that would be useful here, and he can still be interacted with while you're awake, so that wouldn't be too good for him. His Mori shows him bursting his arm through a survivor, so he should be relatively strong, but he just doesn't have any of his dream reality manipulation that we see from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and he was kinda sorta killed by two average teens, running off a combined 10 minutes of sleep, so I couldn't place him any higher. But I do think that the dream powers he still has would be good enough to give him the edge against Afton in a fight. Little old Leatherface, despite being in the same realm of popularity as many others on this list like Michael Myers, isn't nearly on their level of power. He is a simpler man, so not quite as cunning as many others here, must have been the Tylenol his mom was taking, but he does have a mean case of big boy strength. He's a big brute who's used to overwhelming people with his strength. He has a mallet for smacking people, and a chainsaw for sawing them in half. He has tussle with guys like Jason Voorhees, but he has a lot of anti-feats that put him around the likes of average people who have stood up to him. He admittedly has a lot of range depending on the specific canon you're going off of, and this placement is on the lower end of where he could realistically be. He's just blatantly stronger than Freddy though, so I think the Bubster takes that fight. The other cannibal takes the spot right above the last one. Surely there won't be like 5 more on this list. The hag was just an average girl until she was kidnapped and forced to use the sigils she learned about. These markings can affect things like luck, but now in her animalistic hag form, she seems to only use them as we see in game. While in the range of a phantasm trap, a fake hag made of mud will burst out of the ground, which she can instantly teleport to. These phantasms themselves can't do anything but jump scare you, and since they're made out of mud, I imagine they can be destroyed. Only if reacted to before the hag can teleport. The hag is strong enough to impale and disembowel people with her claws and tear into them with her teeth. I think the hag and Leatherface are relative in strength, but the hag's ability to reliably teleport around gives her the edge. That and her traps would surely scare the shit out of him. The newest killer in the DBD roster is the Krasu. Based on Southeast Asian folklore, the Krasu was a woman who wanted to sing but found no success. After taking an offer from a friend and ingesting a mysterious liquid, she found success at the cost of becoming the Krasu. She would transform into this floating head and guts. In-game, she could shoot these infectious orbs that allow her monstrous form to damage survivors, but the effect will go away if you eat the fungi she leaves behind. She can pretty easily tear people apart, even pop heads with her intestines. But if going off the original folklore, the Krasu can be killed if you destroy the intestines, which is pretty much the whole body. The hag and Krasu are surely pretty close in power, but I feel like the Krasu's extra abilities and maneuverability gives her the edge. And you know, the head popping thing. The Mordeo is a character from Crypt TV and a skin for the Huntress. I used to love Crypt TV and I swear I saw it everywhere for a time. Anywho, the Mordeo is similar to the Wendigo from Native American folklore. When you cannibalize someone out in the woods, the Mordeo takes over and you transform into a monster. The Mordeo turns its host into a much stronger, faster, and vicious version of themselves, able to leap large distances and pounce on prey. This specific Mordeo in DBD is the queen, so it should be fair to upscale it from an average Mordeo. It can also possibly teleport. She's stronger than the Krasu, and with a pretty sizable speed advantage, giving it the edge here. Caleb makes it to the spot solely due to his Redeemer, a gun that shoots a railroad spike that doubles as a messed up tetanus-riddled harpoon gun. It was designed to reel people in without killing them, but headshots do what headshots do, which is very likely that he'd hit because he's extremely accurate, said to be able to easily hit targets in the dead of night. He's a skilled hand-to-hand fighter, taking on dozens of other cowboys both armed and unarmed. I think the Mordeo could possibly take the Deathslinger in close quarters, but he's still definitely skilled enough in hand-to-hand combat to contend with her. But he's more than accurate enough to pop her from afar. The Legion as a group jump up a good bit simply because they have a number advantage on almost everyone here. I'm gonna say that if at least one of the members survives and kills the other, then it counts as a win for them. 4 teens with increased speed and ferocity should be able to take out the killers below them just because there's more of them coming all at once. The Deathslinger would definitely take out 1, 2, or even 3 members, but I think the multitude of stab wounds would kill him before he kills all of them. The Look-See is a skin for the Doctor and is honestly a weird one to place. Technically, he can be at the very bottom of the list because how powerful he is and whether or not he even comes after you is tied to your emotions, and if you can let something damaging to you go, like the death of your kid or something, because why let that get to you? And we've seen him let people who straight up don't care go. If we count non-stories like his fight against the Mordeo or his fight against Michael Myers, then he can still fight despite the rules or whatever, but it seems like he becomes weaker when up against something willing to fight back. He has blatant teleportation and is able to tear people apart in moments. Can't show it, obviously, but take my word for it, I guess. He doesn't seem to be particularly durable, but he can shrug off a good bit of damage, namely stab wounds, which is all the Legion has going for them. He's a lot faster and stronger than the Legion, and again, can totally teleport, so he can easily zip around. He does have more abilities like stopping time and kinda sorta reading minds, but we don't know if the former is just in the mind of the person he's targeting, and we don't see him use either ability offensively. DBD's Ghostface OC drops a few spots from last year's ranking. Behavior gave us a new Ghostface killer with Danny Johnson, a smarter and generally more dangerous seasoned killer when compared to the Hueys of the movies. He's been stalking and killing for who knows how long without getting caught or killed. While in the realm, he's given some sort of paranormal power for stealth as we see with his little floaty bits. He stalks survivors and applies the exposed status effect, which is up to interpretation on what it is exactly in a real world setting, but it allows him to instantly down survivors, so it's safe to assume it either strengthens him or weakens the one hit with it. If going off his Icebound Phantom cosmetic, he was able to take a giant icicle straight to the chest and survived, meaning he should be able to take a fair share of damage. Ghostface does have a lot of knowledge on the other killers, which would come in handy here. The Look-See is faster with more abilities, but going off what we've seen, Ghostface should be able to take more hits than the Look-See. And it seems like the Look-See can't use its extra abilities on those who have nothing they care to let go of. Whoa. The Trapper doesn't have much in terms of power. He's got nothing but bear traps, but he has been hardened by his time in the realm, best seen in his base cosmetic with hooks and spikes protruding from his skin. The game itself states that he's strong with his perk Brutal Strength, and he's fought off the Entity for a bit in a cinematic, but obviously that doesn't make him as strong as the Entity. He's also able to walk off an insane amount of damage, like being disemboweled by a boat motor. I don't feel like Ghostface would fall for a trap, and both should be in the same ballpark when it comes to taking damage, but I think the Trapper is considerably stronger and wins more likely than not. That being said, Ghosty could possibly win if he gets the jump on him with his stealth. The Wraith can kinda sorta become invisible or at least translucent up close. While cloaked, he moves faster and becomes undetectable, and coming out of it gives him a burst of speed, meaning he should reliably get close to most killers on this list. He's strong enough to lift people up and rip spines out with a single hand. I'm not sure if he's able to canonically interact with others while cloaked. He can't swing his weapon in-game, but it could be a balance thing because he can still break pallets and grab survivors out of lockers. Getting stunned by any means while cloaked leaves him stunned for a longer duration than normal. So if a dropped pallet or swinging a locker door can hurt him, I'm sure getting stabbed will do something similar. The Wraith is stronger, faster, and stealthier than the Trapper, so unless he stepped on a trap and got some bad RNG, he should reasonably take the Trapper out more times than not. Ugh. I don't know how strong this guy can be. His more impressive feats like destroying emeralds or lifting large objects are pretty akin to Toon Force abilities, which I hate taking into account for these kinds of things. He also loses pretty much all his impressive gear while in the realm, stuck to using traps and a machete. He's also made out of stuffing, so like, I don't know. I feel like he should be strong enough to overpower the Wraith, even if we do take these feats lightly. I don't know, man, fuck this stupid bear. Okay, I might be stupid, but I didn't understand the Jabberwocky at all. Just like Miss Fuchi, the Jabberwocky is a skin for the artist, and similar to the 7-foot-tall freak, I'll be taking her size as we see in-game and not the 100-foot dragon from Alice in Wonderland. The dragon is really underwhelming in terms of power, being killed by both Alice and the knight relatively easily, and most of the trouble it gave was because of its size. It breathes fire and lightning, or I guess has heat vision? Whatever. But it isn't very durable, being easily decapitated by the knight and Alice. But this thing still has superpowers and can, you know, fly, so. But its ability to shoot lightning from way up should give it a huge advantage over those who couldn't reach it or react to its attacks. Naughty Bear gets zapped. The nurse got a solid bump since last time. By using the breath of others, like the kind, she can teleport or blink to pretty much anywhere she chooses. She does have to charge these teleports for a short time, and can only blink twice in a row in most cases. After doing so, she goes into a short fatigue since using her power physically pains her, likely ripping the breath out of her own body. But as we see in her Moris, she can possibly teleport short distances in rapid succession with little to no fatigue. She has a form of telekinesis, allowing her to lift survivors and break pallets and walls. On top of everything, she can take an insane amount of damage, having her body pierced and impaled by multiple items and trucking along as if nothing happened. Her telekinesis should be enough to reach the Jabberwocky. If not, then she could literally teleport to it, and she's more than strong enough to damage it, and durable enough to withstand its attacks. Resident Evil fans, please don't hate me. Hunk is an Umbrella special operative who's been able to survive every single dangerous mission he's been on, usually as the only survivor. He's one of, if not the best hand-to-hand combatant on this list, and he was nicknamed Mr. Death or just the Grim Reaper, which is pretty cool. He unfortunately doesn't have a lot of on-screen showings, and I can't really place him too much higher going off prestige alone. He would be a lot higher on this list if given his usual gear, but in the realm he has nothing but a combat knife. The nurse does have a range and durability advantage, but I feel like Hunk can make use out of her fatigues and beat her. Hunk could be a lot higher, but his only feat against a much stronger enemy ended with him losing, and that was with all of his gear and many other trained soldiers, so 31 will have to do. Right above the Grim Reaper himself is William Birkin. I will say that William and the other Resident Evil characters on this list can be much higher if going off of their most powerful forms, but we don't know if they can even completely transform while in the realm. So Birkin's first form is what we'll be using here. He was strong enough to power through a barrage of bullets from Hunk's squad, and pretty much tear through all of them, and he was strong enough to destroy a walkway by slamming Leon into it. And like, he already easily beat Hunk while he had a gun, so fighting him while he only has a knife should be much easier for him. The Plague isn't too physically powerful if we disregard Vommy Mommy's back muscles, but her vomit makes people sick and even kills people. People who end up sick can clean themselves in a fountain that corrupts it. If the Plague drinks from it, her puke turns into a corrupt purge, and can physically damage those hit by it. I'm not exactly sure what it is though, like if it's acidic or targets your soul or something. If using that alone, she'd be much lower on the list, but as we see in DBD Mobile Moris, she can straight up yoink your soul out of your body. I don't even know how you defend from this. Chances are, unless you manage to kill her immediately, the Plague would likely win via soul extraction. William Birkin is obviously way stronger and could win by overpowering her, but I don't think there's anything that can protect him from the Plague's soul powers. And we don't know how the Plague's vial or corrupt purge would interact with the G-Virus. Rin Yamaoka was a schoolgirl who happened to be cursed with her many great-grandpa's curse that gave her family a mean case of anger issues. The kind that makes you want to chop up your daughter, I guess. This rage gives her a strength amp, making her able to overpower multiple guys jumping her. Mixed in with the fact that she's a skilled swordsman since she's trained in kendo for a long time, that and it's literally in her blood to fight. After nearly being killed by her dad, the entity promised her that she'd have a revenge and she joined the killer roster. In the realm, she becomes a ghostly Onryo-like figure. She occasionally phases in and out of reality passively, but she can do it on command. If she's phasing, she leaves a husk behind, but her real body can move freely. She can't see anyone and they can't see her, but there is a directional audio cue coming from where she is. She can immediately attack out of this, and she's extremely fast in combat, incorporating her phasing ability into her fighting style. But she can be stunned while phasing, so a perceptive opponent could react to where she is and attack her. I'm not sure if the Plague's soul powers would even work on the spirit, but I think her phasing and higher combat speed would allow her to kill the Plague before the Plague got a hold of her. The Doctor has straight up superpowers. Zappy lightning powers, which allow him to send a large static blast over a 32-meter radius or in a straight line. Getting hit with his electricity stops survivors from throwing down pallets or vaulting, and enough electricity will make them go mad, causing them to see illusions of the Doctor and stops them from healing or repairing generators. Exactly what Madness Tier 3 would do to a killer is up to you, I guess, but I imagine it would at least hinder their ability to fight and reliably use their powers. He can also shoot out concentrated shocks like a Sith Lord and can straight up fry people. I imagine his shocks could knock the spirit out of her power, and the Doctor's range advantage would mitigate the difference in combat speed and skill. Poor Hillbilly, I don't blame him for killing everybody. He carries a cattle hammer and a chainsaw. I swear I've been here before. While using his chainsaw, he runs much faster, at over 10 meters per second, and with enough usage, his chainsaw overcharges, allowing him to run at 12 meters per second. Benedict Baker said that it seemed like the chainsaw itself imbued him with more speed. I say this every time, but please bring back the Benedict Baker entries. It was cool seeing someone on the ground talk about all these characters. Max is strong enough to one-shot people and pigs with a hammer to the head, or decapitate people with a shovel. He also has the lift lifting strength to kill and hang multiple cows on a tree. I think the hillbilly can power through the doctor's madness, and his perk enduring implies he's strong enough to withstand a good amount of damage, so I'm sure he'd saw Herman up before getting zapped to death. The Huntress is the last original killer on this list without any sort of blatant superpowers. An axe and some hatchets was all she needed. She survived in the wilderness on her own from a young age, killing animals to survive like wolves and mooses. But when soldiers started fighting in her woods, she began hunting them too. We've seen her mow down multiple troops of armed soldiers, reacting to gunfire and whatnot, and overpower everyone she's tangoed with. Even a flamethrower completely engulfing her body wasn't enough to take her down, although it did hurt and scare her. She has a mean arm, able to throw hatchets long distances, and is extremely accurate with them too, hitting multiple headshots in rapid succession. I think the hillbilly is physically stronger with higher movement speed, but the Huntress has higher combat speed, a range advantage, and is a much better fighter. There isn't too much on the were-elk since it's an original legendary skin for the Huntress. It has the Huntress's mask, so it's possible that it's either a werewolf elk version of the Huntress, or lived in the Red Forest and killed his universe's Huntress. If the latter theory is correct, then it should simply upskill from the Huntress. Hell, even if it is the transformed version of the Huntress, then it stands to reason that it's simply stronger than her former self. It seems to be more physically imposing, easily tossing around survivors with its antlers and disemboweling them. The Blight's an interesting character since, like Ghosty, he knows a lot about the other killers. Even before becoming the Blight, Rickless Grimes was capturing killers and experimenting on them. This means that he should have a general idea on how to capture and subdue most killers here. But this is surely done with extensive preparation, since there's no way he could just throw down with most of these guys, especially as a human. On top of his intelligence, he's addicted to the Blighted Serum, which makes him stronger and faster, zipping around the map and slamming his face into everything without taking any damage. He keeps multiple vials of serum on him, including kinds that straight up kill whoever's injected by it. Exactly how strong he is debatable, but he should be much faster than the were-elk, and has a solid insta-win con with the vials of Blight Serum. The Knight is just a knight, but he is extremely skilled, taking out entire villages worth of people on his own or with the help of his posse. He has what you generally expect a knight to have, a huge sword and an assortment of blades as well as the whole knight getup, so he's covered head to toe in armor. The knight doesn't have any superpowers of his own, but he can summon 3 of his guards to chase and attack people. In game, he can only send 1 at a time, but as we see in his Mori and a cinematic, all 3 can exist at the same time. Although, if the trials are anything to go off of, they can't exist for too long. The guards seem to be weaker than a normal killer, but just like Victor with Charlotte, they can keep coming back after they despawn. So to get rid of them, you most likely have to kill the Knight. The Knight is more than skilled enough to take the Blight on 1v1, with the equipment to close the gap in physical speed and strength. With the help of his crew, it should be light enough to win as long as the Knight can avoid being pricked by a needle. William, now as Springtrap, should directly scale to the other animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's, putting his strength and durability casually in the wall-busting ranges. He's also survived being trapped in a burning building, despite that being a direct weakness of his. An underrated aspect of the FNAF animatronics is their speed, running around and blitzing people faster than they can react, closing distances in the split second that a light flickers. On top of that, the entity gave him a random-ass robo-death machine that saws people up, and multiple security doors he can teleport to. Survivors, or in this case, the killers, but staring at a screen probably isn't the best idea in a fight to the death. In the trials, he has a huge knife and a fire axe he can throw around, giving him options for close quarters and ranged fights. The Knight and his crew are better fighters, but I think Springtrap takes the edge in all physical stats. Michael Myers Glazer over here, second only to Ozzymov's. Michael, despite being technically human, has had some pretty insane feats over the years. How strong fluctuates with the exact timeline, obviously, but taking a composite Mikey, we can get his durability to pretty insane levels. He withstood the force of multiple building level explosions, walked off multiple gunshots, including point blank shotgun blasts, as well as no-selling being injected by multiple vials of acid goop stuff. He's physically strong enough to punch holes through people, throw people around, and crush heads. He's also surprisingly cunning, capable of laying traps and tricking people to get away. He's not particularly fast, but he does disappear and reappear on multiple occasions, meaning he has to run off screen or just teleport, although we have seen him blitz people on rare occasions. And he sometimes can dodge gunfire, but he usually just tanks it. I know Michael Myers vs Springtrap has been talked about before, but aside from a solid gap in movement speed, Michael takes the edge in all other physical stats. Honestly though, you can rearrange the order of the last 3 in any way. The Chatterer is a fan favorite from the Hellraiser franchise for whatever reason. As far as I've seen, the Chatterer doesn't have some of the stronger abilities that a certain other character from the franchise has. In his Mori, we do see him teleport survivors presumably out of the realm. His lore states that he simply followed Pinhead here, making me skeptical. Making me skeptical. Making me skeptical. Making me skeptical. Skeptical? Making me skeptical. Making me skeptical when it comes to believe. Fuck. Making me skeptical when it comes to believing that the Chatterer has the same abilities as his Apex Cenobite pal. But in the trials, he does use the same chains Pinhead uses. We know that the Cenobites have increased physicals like punching through concrete or reacting to bullets, but they can be hurt by conventional means, so Myers is strong, but the Chatterer can summon chains that can possibly tear him apart. If not, then they'd at least hurt him. And he has enough physical strength to at least contend with Mikael. There isn't much known about the unknown, crazy, I know, so trying to make sense out of what it is exactly will get us nowhere, and we'd be diving into theory territory, so I'll only go off of what we know. The unknown uses weapons like axes and shears, but seems to have the physicality to attack people empty-handed. It shoots this UVX gloop orb that weakens whoever's hit by it. It can even hit people through walls, but it does go away if the target stares at the unknown. The unknown also has these tendrils that come out of its back that turn people into dust. It's possible that they aren't able to pierce through skin, because we see them stab through survivors' orifices like eyes, but again, we don't know anything. I will say here though that the unknown has the potential to be much higher depending on specific details we may or may not get in the future, like how it seems to have a direct connection to what people believe that it is, as well as knowing when people are thinking about it. He may also be really fast, poofing people away even in public areas in broad daylight. He does have a teleportation ability in the realm, although it's only to his clones that he leaves behind. The unknown can transform into those it's killed or believed to have killed, so fictional characters are free reign too. It can be a grandma, a cheerleader, the big bad wolf, it can be you, it can even be me. I don't really have a set in stone ranking for this guy. It could be somewhere at the top of the list. I imagine that the unknown's tendrils can enter the Chatterer's mouth and dust him. The Demogorgon and the Stranger Things chapter in general is what got me into DBD. Honestly, because I had just finished watching whatever season had just come out, and the Demogorgon is the best thing to come out of the show. He's big and fast and can tear people apart with its huge claws and needle teeth things. It's strong enough to easily throw people around, and durable enough to withstand gunfire. Its only direct weakness is fire, but even a full-on flamethrower assault didn't kill it, only weakened its body enough to be cut through with a sword. That and its mouth doesn't seem to be as durable as the rest of its body. In the realm, it was given the ability to create its own portals that it uses to traverse the map and also gives him undetectable upon leaving, making him extra stealthy. The Demogorgon should be durable enough to withstand the unknown's tendrils and possibly destroy it. The Xenomorph in DBD is specifically the one from the first movie, but we do see skins from different points of the franchise, so I'll be taking a composite Xeno as opposed to doing each one individually. Xenomorphs are strong enough to ragdoll people, take automatic gunfire, tear down metal doors, and are fast enough to blitz trained soldiers. And even if you can get through their tough skin, they bleed acid which can quickly eat away at anything it comes into contact with. They have claws, a spear tail, and a mouth which are all capable of piercing through people, metal, and even other Xenos, which puts their attack potency above their impressive durability. The Xenomorph and Demogorgon are pretty close in terms of stats. I actually do believe that the Demogorgon might be more durable for the most part, but the Xenomorph is faster and its acid blood would be a huge problem for anything that has to get in close. If I'm going off my self-imposed rules, the Xenomorph Queen is just slightly bigger than the Xenomorph, so she goes up higher but not quite enough to make a real difference in her ranking. Artist at 14? Totally not biased. But allow me to make a case for Miss Carmina. She didn't have powers before entering the realm, but she did, art, as you can imagine. But her art pissed off the wrong guys, so they chopped off her hands and tongue. In her final moments, a murder of crows came and attacked and killed everyone there. Because her friends died, I wasn't so sure if she could control the crows directly, but we see in a cinematic that the artist calls upon the crows to kill Jonah on hook. And in both a tome and her base lore, the crows seem to be able to communicate sorta telepathically with her, even even saving her from jumping off a bridge pre-entity, as well as showing up at all of her performances. In the 12 to Midnight The Crow's Tome, it's confirmed that Carmina can see into other worlds. In the trials, she can conjure up large ink crows that fly in straight lines. They can injure people if hit directly, or swarm people from far away. Any subsequent hit while swarmed injures them too, although this could all be for gameplay and any bird can do damage. Because the entity can create literal infinite amounts of crows at any given time, the artist could be pretty high up, but we've only seen her control a few dozen at a time. Could we highball this into the hundreds? Maybe, but it'd feel a little silly to say that she can control an infinite amount of crows all at once. Much like Ghostface, the artist can power through being impaled by ice, meaning she should be able to withstand the Xenomorph's physical attacks. And as we see in Amori, she can inject others with her ink and have crows burst out of them. A super ironic end for the Xeno. Rise was a tough one to place because up until the point that she was taken by the entity, she had literally no feats. She threw Kaneki through a wall pretty casually, and she should have the usual ghoul abilities like increased strength, speed, durability, and a pretty insane healing factor. As for her straight up durability though, it does leave a bit to be desired as she was crushed by steel beams while she tried to eat Kaneki. She did survive this in the manga, kinda, sorta, but this amount of force is obviously enough to put her down, and any killer strong enough to recreate this could kill her afterwards. She's much faster and physically stronger than the artist, and even though Carmina has a range advantage, I don't think her ink crows or regular crows would be able to damage her enough to bypass Rise's regeneration. Ooh. The Oni is a spirit's super grandpappy and outclasses her in all stats. Bigger and stronger with much more fighting experience. He cleansed the land of imposter samurai and killed everyone in his way, even some of the most skilled ones, only finally being defeated when he was jumped by dozens of armed villagers, but taking many out with him. If going off this alone, he'd be right around the knight, but in the realm he was transformed into an Oni, or at least the entity's rendition of one as to further increase Kazan's rage, presumably only further increasing his base physicals. His blighted outfit implies that he's one of the strongest killers in the realm. The Oni can absorb blood from others to fuel his blood fury mode. In this mode, he becomes faster and even stronger, now capable of one-shot downing survivors. I think if the Oni can get in his blood fury mode, he should be able to overpower Rise and her Kagane, and definitely has the skill to fight until it gets there. How do I even do static sound? Sadako doesn't have anything at all in terms of physicals, but she has very powerful psychic and telekinetic abilities that put her at the level of these last few entries. As we see in her Mori, she can break people apart with her mind, and her inexorable stare can give anyone a heart attack and kill them on the spot. She did drop a bit since her last ranking, and that's because for her to use her insta-kill ability, she has to build up the condemned meter on survivors, or in this case, the killers. I do assume that this is another example of the entity tweaking a killer's power for the trials, as we see multiple TVs around any given map that she's on, which she can teleport to at any given time. She can demanifest and manifest whenever she chooses. While demanifested, she can phase right through people and can't be stunned, so we can assume that she wouldn't take damage through conventional means. But she can't damage others during this time either. The Oni's better physicals wouldn't matter here because of Sadako's ability to demanifest, and since he wouldn't cut her, he would never even get the chance to use his blood fury. The Dredge is a lot like the Unknown in the sense that we aren't shown too much as for physical power. It seems to be the manifestation of evil and dark thoughts, and seems to feed on that same idea. Many compare it to the entity itself, and while I do agree that there is a similarity there with the whole emotion thing, I've seen people jump to the conclusion that it makes the Dredge just as strong as the Spider God, which is pretty crazy. As I've said in my rankings over the last 2 years, the Dredge needs physical parts in order to interact with other beings. If you look at his cosmetics like skeletal mass or that creepy ass doll one, the flavor text shows how his flesh bits were starting to wither away and how the Dredge needed to replace them. I do believe that someone strong and fast enough can chop through the Dredge's parts until there's nothing left, but can the black mass just swallow someone whole? Maybe. We see it in his Mori, but again, it uses the physical bits to pull survivors in. In the trials, the Dredge can teleport to any locker on the map which can be locked, and can also teleport to a remnant it can leave behind in any given area. I don't think Sadako's stare would even work on the Dredge, but she can be interacted with and hurt while manifested, so I think the Dredge takes it more often than not. Again, the Dredge could be higher, but I don't want to dive into theory territory too hard. Oh brother, here we go again. Speaking of not diving into theory territory, we have Pyramid Head at the 9th spot. I've seen a lot of conclusions made about the Executioner and his power within the realm. Like, so many people hear theories from other YouTubers and completely ran with it. Like how Pyramid Head is actually here to punish the entity, or how his Trail of Torment hurts the entity, therefore he's the strongest on the list, and in the verse, but we don't see any of that anywhere. Not in his lore, not in flavor text, nothing. Or people interpreting the whole unspoken agreement thing between him and the entity as Pyramid Head bullying the entity into letting him in, or something despite this agreement being extremely beneficial for the entity. So like, duh, it would want Pyramid Head here. It literally says the entity sought him out, and Pyramid Head just came willingly. Anyways, going off what we know of canon Pyramid Head, so Silent Hill 2 only, it's once again very hard to get a tangible level of Pyramid Head's power. Unlike a lot of other big stalker horror characters, we never actually defeat Pyramid Head. We don't even seem to damage him. He only dies when he spears himself in the head, so getting an exact gauge of his strength and durability is tough. But Pyramid Head knows selling bullets from a shitty shotgun and hunting rifle does not make him all powerful. That's an open and shut case of a no limits fallacy, and I'm going off tangible feats here. Pyramid Head's scaling is pretty consistently around wall level, small building level at absolute best, but not quite at the multiversal range that some people like to believe. In the realm, he gets a new ability, Punishment of the Damned, which lets him shoot metal and barbed wire along the floor. He seems to be able to manipulate this metal and wire as we see in his Mori. He might just be the physically strongest on this list so far, and his supernatural aspects should allow him to ignore whatever mental powers the Dredge may have, and make it pretty easy for Pyramid Head to chop him up. Nemesis above Pyramid Head might come as a surprise, but again, tangible feats. And Resident Evil is a lot more showy when it comes to that, since it's much more action horror than Silent Hill is. The Nemesis is pretty much immune to gunfire, and is just generally extremely resilient to all forms of damage. Blunt force, piercing, fire, explosions, etc. The Nemesis is also able to casually Kool-Aid man through walls. He has a tentacle which he incorporates into his combat, which is also able to pierce through walls and people. And he's just so fast. Resident Evil scaling puts most of their higher end characters like Jill, Leon, and Chris in the supersonic to even hypersonic ranges, since they all have feats of dodging bullets or even missiles, sometimes at point blank. Nemesis directly scales to Jill since he's fought her and hit her before she could react. Nemesis also has pretty solid regeneration, but just like Birkin, I won't be considering his later larger form since in DBD, his tears only affect his tentacle and arm but not the rest of his body. Going strictly off feats, the Nemesis is just faster and stronger than Pyramid Head.
My fat ass is not for you. It's for Jill Valentine and Rebecca Chambers.
Wesker, once infected with Ouroboros, was leagues above his SARS pals like Chris Redfield. Wesker is flat out stated to be stronger than BOWs, which would include Nemesis himself, already scaling both his strength and speed above the previous entry. He's also extremely smart. He's literally nicknamed the Mastermind, so his battle IQ should be one of the highest on this list. His tentacles can do way more than we see in DBD, which he shoots underground and into a survivor, killing them. It can reinforce his body and make him more durable, like how he was just chilling in the lava of a volcano, or just shoot out and grab hold of a helicopter which he was about to bring down. The tentacles can also reinforce themselves with other materials like metal, which only make Wesker's attack stronger. He was eventually killed by 2 rocket launchers to the face, but he was already weakened at that point. Reduced visibility, recalibrating. The Singularity is really underrated, I feel, when it comes to these sort of debates. The Hux bots were specifically made to help humans on a brand new planet. They're bigger, stronger, faster, smarter, and more durable. They can survive extreme temperatures and have 10 times the strength of a human, and their AI has a plethora of information to further assist people with whatever they need. Their AI is able to decipher decillions of lines of code in a nanosecond. I compared this to reaction speed last time, which some people disagreed with, but I feel like the ability to quickly process information coming at you should equal reaction speed. At the very least, his reaction and movement speed should be in the supersonic ranges, as he was able to dodge and close in on gunfire from close range. The Singularity was able to survive a large explosion that destroyed the colonization hub, which only melted away its fleshy parts, so he should have building to large building level durability. He destroyed the other Hux bots, which should have the same durability, putting his attack potency at least on par with his durability, but likely even higher. In the trials, he can shoot camera-like pods that can infect those it sees, which he can then instantly teleport to and goes into overclock mode. While in this mode, the Singularity can move, vault, and break pallets faster, so it's likely this would translate to all of its stats getting a solid amp. He also can't be stunned by pallets, making him the only killer to straight up not be stunned by them. Aside from the Onryo, but she didn't manifest, so that doesn't really count. These pallets can bypass all durability and stun every killer here, likely meaning that the entity itself amps them, but I'll try not to wank the Singularity too hard. And on top of all of that, he has a serum that can just insta-kill whoever he injects with it. His stats should be equal if not higher than Wesker's. Overclock mode Singularity should win pretty handily. I have never played The Witcher in my life, so forgive me if I get something wrong here. The Lushen is a monster or type of monster in the Witcherverse, which can cast spells and control living beings, namely trees, as we see it use branches and roots to attack or defend from attacks, or control animals like wolves and even crows, which is why he's a skin for the artist. If using his handy dandy animated fight scene as an example of its power, then this thing is pretty strong, showing us a much better scene of using crows offensively than the artist using them to kill Jonah. The Lushen is described as slow moving, but in the scene these guys are clashing like Naruto and Sasuke. Even if it does have slow movement speed, they're able to teleport wherever they choose. And as for durability, they can take multiple attacks from Geralt as well as keep up with his attacks. Geralt is able to react to lightning based attacks on the regular, putting the Lushen's combat and reaction speed in the hypersonic ranges. The Lushen should easily be able to tank and react to the Singularity's attacks, and has just more options to attack with. Pinhead is another character that gets winked like crazy by fans, who say he's stronger than the entity because he can just come and go from the realm as he pleases, which literally doesn't make any sense. If you can walk in and out of someone's house, that doesn't immediately mean you can whoop the homeowner's ass. Pinhead is the apex Cenobite, meaning he's a lot more powerful with a lot more abilities when compared to other Cenobites. Pinhead can summon chains that are capable of easily ripping people apart. After a while in the realm, if the box isn't found, then a chain hunt starts, which spawns chains that target the survivors, but killers in this case. Pinhead can also do this himself if he finds the box, but that's completely up to luck since it seems like he's kinda unaware of its exact location while he's in the realm. He should upskill from other Cenobites, so easily overpowering people, destroying concrete, reacting to the speed of gunfire, but most importantly, he can warp reality, turning everyday objects into weapons which he can then throw telekinetically. There is a lot of Hellraiser media, from movies which aren't all canon to each other, to comics, to books, and there's some pretty crazy stuff like Pinhead fighting Lucifer, to him becoming larger than a planet. So there's some range here. But I won't be diving too deep into that because we don't see anything like that in DBD, just chains. These chains are at best able to lift cars and rip through trains, which get him pretty up there. But he's here mostly because of his reality warping, which should allow him to attack the Lushen with anything, if not warp his roots outright. Kaneki being this high on any list that isn't ranking every killer by how much I hate them might be kinda crazy. Tokyo Ghoul is the first anime to get a chapter in DBD, but it does in fact get pretty crazy anime fight scenes. He devoured Jason right before being taken by the entity, which should easily scale Kaneki above him, putting his movement and reaction speed well into the hypersonic range, since other ghouls on this level can dodge automatic gunfire from close range, as well as move faster than other hypersonic characters can react. He's strong enough to throw other ghouls through multiple floors of a building. As I said earlier with Rize, ghouls are much stronger and more durable than humans are, and Kaneki can still overpower, outspeed, and do more damage than a ghoul can regenerate from. His own regen is pretty fast too, instantly recovering from getting his foot twisted like 1,000 degrees and being impaled. Kaneki is just way faster than Pinhead, and can regenerate from anything he would throw at him, his regen being fast even among other ghouls. His Kagane has surprising range, allowing Kaneki to attack from afar, and even if the chains could penetrate his skin, which I doubt, Kaneki would quickly recover from it. So the top two are pretty obvious, like the jump in power from number 3 to number 2 is insane. And as you can tell by my wonderful stun impression, number 2 goes to the Lich Vecna. I know a lot of people feel strongly about Vecna being number 1 on these kind of lists, but again, remember that I said that I'll be ranking every killer by their power within the realm, where Vecna has the equivalent of a shock collar stamped to the backside of his neck by the entity itself. He is explicitly heavily nerfed by the entity, so he doesn't pull anything off in order to overthrow the whole thing. People say that Vecna could be even stronger than the entity at full power, which I have to heavily disagree with. If Vecna was stronger, then he would have just sapped the spider god's power away upon first interacting with each other. His lore states that his magic only kept the fog at bay, and that's just a swirly fog, not the entity's full force. But whatever. Vecna has 4 abilities here. Fly to, fly around. Flight of the Damned to send skeletons out in a straight line, which can also melt people down to their bones. Mage Hand can hold up or break pallets in game, but I imagine it can canonically grab hold of and attack people as well. And Dispelling Sphere that cuts off the use of magic and detects those it passes by. He also seems to have telekinesis, as well as these crystals he can use offensively to break pallets or impale survivors. Vecna has been able to react to light-based attacks, easily putting him in the FTL ranges, as well as direct scaling to other multiversal beings, so he probably solos everyone below him at the same time. Bat sounds, bat sounds, bat sounds. And that leaves us with the Dark Lord himself, Dracula. People downplay my boy, saying he's just a vampire. Dracula seems to not be nerfed by the entity at all while in the realm, as we see his true form running around too, despite having the capacity to give it a run for its money. Dracula can lift Castlevania, which plays by Snoopy's house rules, since it's an entire universe or multiverse in size. He's fast enough to fight death, who can kill distance itself to land attacks instantly, putting his speed at immeasurable easily. He can read minds, transform into anything like mist, bats, or a wolf. He controls hellfire, creates black holes, makes it rain acid blood, and of course the demonic Megiddo. I can't speak on how Vecna vs Dracula would go at full power, but at least for the purpose of the video, if going off the versions we see in-game, Dracula is the strongest killer in Dead by Daylight. Thanks for watching today's video. Here's the tier list I mentioned before. You guys can thank Gaijin for this from my Valorant ranking comment section. I know my rankings give off like the impression that like, oh, this guy always beats this guy beats this guy 1000% of the time. Like honestly, and I try to say this in like comments every now and then, but I feel like every character can fluctuate between like 3 to like 5 spots, if not more, you know, and it doesn't even take into account the like specific scenarios, like can the Oni absorb xenomorph acid blood, you know, like would that empower him, would that like hurt him? And I know I didn't include like every single character, every single like legendary, like the mythology ones, or like the Warhammer Titan for the spirit or whatever, and I know I was a little picky and choosy with those, but like mythology is really hard to scale, you know, and technically like characters like the Warhammer Titan, like the Birch, aren't their own characters in here, you know? And like the Minotaur or whatever, like they're hard to scale. Like, is there even a canon for like mythology? I don't know. I just kind of sidestepped that one. As well as like, you know, the Dredge, the Iron Maiden, whatnot, you know? If those were misses, you know, just let me know. But and at the end of the day, I didn't feel like scaling them, you know? But this video took forever, you know, I had some other stuff going on, but it was really rough. If you super disagree, I have my, you know, the comment section, of course, and I have my Discord and my community tab somewhere. So if you wanna, if you wanna yell at me there, that's fine. Oh, and I don't know, if this video does well enough, I'll do a 24-hour straight stream of Dead by Daylight. I don't know if it'll just be Survivor or Survivor and Killer, but I don't know. Something. Huge thanks to Hush Puppy Art for today's thumbnail. His Twitter's down in the description, as per usual. Next video is another ranking, this time on Mega Pokemon, so subscribe to see when that's out, and I'll see you guys later.